Hello, and welcome to DIY or Die, the series that encourages you to do it yourself because the alternative habitually exploits women and children in far-off places you will never see. In my mind, it's absolutely essential that we put an end to fast fashion. You know, the clothes that make us go, "This is a steal," when we're burrowing through the hangers on the rack. That means refusing to buy from big brands and instead being your own brand, or supporting brands of the people you actually know and love. If you're walking around all proud of the massive logo brand on your shirt, remember, you paid them to be a walking billboard, and bottom line, that's just so basic. Otherwise, if you're going to keep wearing those Adidas threads, you may as well write to them and demand that they sponsor you. I'm your host, Matt Harnack, and in this episode, I'm going to teach you how to do a screen print. It's a skill I've always wanted to learn how to do, but until now, I've never taken the time to learn the process. In this episode, I also want to tell you it's a follow-up to a previous episode of DIY or Die where I showed you how to make a mask. That's what we're going to be screen printing on today. Let's get started. Got a DIY screen printing kit from Ryanette. Now, these guys are pretty cool. Basically, this whole kit is everything you need to get started on screen printing. Here's your parts list. You'll need an inkjet transparency, a Sharpie, some gloves, a flat stick, the emulsion, a screen, an abrasive sponge, non-porous tape, degreaser, a non-UV bulb, a rag, a UV bulb, an emulsion scoop, a trash bag, the squeegee, some cardboard, the press platform, some light adhesive, a garden nozzle, ink, screen wash, and the press. You can use a printer to print directly onto the inkjet sheets, but here I'm using a Sharpie to outline my artwork. You want to make the design as opaque as possible so that very little light can pass through the transparency. This is degreaser, and before you apply emulsion, it's a good idea to degrease your screen. Now we just have to let this thing dry. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to unscrew these. I'm just going to unscrew one of them completely and screw this bug light in. We're in a light, safe environment, and we need to take this diazo sensitizer and fill it 1/2 of the way with water. It says distilled water, but I'm going to use filtered water. All right, so I'm just going to put it in there. And it has to be stirred very thoroughly. So there's my emulsion. Let's do the same thing other side. Let's try to get the rest of our emulsion back in the container. Try to get as much of the emulsion out as you can because, the less of it down the drain, the better, and the more you save, the more you can use. I'm gonna actually have this dry shirt side facing down. And now we wait for a few hours. This is gonna take, I don't know, it's like 6 hours or something. All right, there we go. We got it. So what we're gonna do now is we're going to use this screen press. We're gonna attach it to this surface, and we're gonna attach this right here. So next up, I need to attach the arm to the press. And at first, I'm just going to hand tighten these. Before I get those too tight, I'm going to attach these. And when we press this down, let's see what happens. We want to adjust this so that there's just a slight gap. I'm going to put this piece of glass in between. So this joint right here is still moving. So we really need to tighten that down so that it doesn't move. Has to be pretty tight. Great. So now, when you take your squeegee and you press the ink down over the screen, it will bounce. It'll bounce the ink. So the ink isn't totally touching. I've got my artwork. What I'm going to do is I'm going to line the artwork so that the artwork is exactly lined up underneath. Did I fucking do this wrong? So, I totally fucked up. And I printed this on the wrong side. It should be backwards on the shirt side. And it should be correct, look correct, on the ink side. So I guess part of this video is going to be me showing you how to strip emulsion off of a screen. Wrong. Should look correct like that. Here's the emulsion stripper. This is as clean as it's going to get. I've washed out as much of the emulsion as I can, and now I'm really pressed for time. I got to get this done soon because the election's in a few days. So I'm going to degrease this thing without even drying it. And now I'm just gonna let this thing dry. Round 2. There's a sharp side, and there's sort of a rounded side. And I like to use the rounded side. Then I'm just gonna cool, good. And then I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. And we're just using this trash bag to protect the sink so it doesn't get stained. One thing that you should know is the emulsion is drain safe. And everything that Ryonet sells is as eco-friendly as it can be. It's not perfect, but at least they care, they try, they do their best. And that's what we're looking for, you know? We're not looking for perfect. We're looking for doing your best, okay? We're looking for people that are trying to make this whole system work. That's what it's all about, you know? Meeting people where they're at. Even though it looks wrong on the shirt side, it's correct. It looks correct on the ink side. So this here is a UV light, and we are going to run this light for 11 minutes directly over this design. So I'm going to set up my timer, and I'm going to turn this on. And the last thing I want to do is I want to create positive contact by setting this piece of glass over the design. We've exposed our design. And now what we're going to do is we're going to wash out the screen. So you get it wet, and then you wait for just a second so the emulsion can soften up a bit. You can already see that it's showing up. All right, so this is now the shirt side, right? That's the shirt side, but check out the ink side. That's what you need it to look like. You need your design to be clearly legible from the ink side because you're going to be pushing ink through this. So we're going to put this in here. Lock this down nice and tight. And I've got a couple of coins. So I'm going to set the coins down in these corners. That actually looks pretty good. So we set this last time and it's still in the right spot, which if I take the squeegee and I press it down over this, there's a little bit of bounce. So it's not quite touching the wood right here, or the platform right here. So that's going to give us a little space for both our fabric, and it also gives you a little space so that as you take the ink and you run it over the screen, when you're done with the squeegee, the screen comes off of the fabric. So next what I want to do, I want to line this up. I'm going to tape the design just on one place. So now I can lift this up, move it out of the way, And then I can set my fabric in place. Now, there's this adhesive right here. Take off most of that. So now I'm going to make sure that the design is in the right spot. So let's tape off the edge of this screen. Okay, so now we're going to take some of the ink. That's probably a good amount. Not quite. This is truly becoming a DIY or die project because the screen didn't release some of the ink. So I'm literally using this stick to draw in the parts of the ink that didn't come through. I think what happened is the seam right here sort of created maybe too much bounce, but whatever. The election's coming up in 2 weeks, and I got to get this thing done now. So, oh well. So now I'm going to let this dry, and then we're going to iron this, and once you iron it, it's going to make the ink permanent. So here it is. Looks pretty good. I'm going to try it on. Donnie, you remember The Apprentice, right? You know, you've had this position for several years now, and your performance time and time again is not meeting the expectation of the American people. You've had a history of negligence, disregard for our mission, and lying directly to the client. You're fired. Please pack your things, and security will escort you out of the country. See you in November. Mask the vote.
Stormy Daniels, Roger Stone, WikiLeaks, Michael Cohen, Nikki Haley, Robert Mueller, much we'll never know. Jared Kushner, nerves rape, Charlottesville, Kurtz betrayed, narcissist, nepotism, never quit pro quo. Jeff Sessions, golf binges, Rudy G, off the hinges, Ukraine, morals met, Mexico won't pay a cent, jail time, xenophobes, freaking out the Russia probe.